You are listening to the Air Raid Hour with host Judge Mathis, dog, Tilt Money, dog, presented by the fine folks over at the Cover One Sports Network, dogs. Bills Mafia, let's go!
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. Together, we are the Bills guys. This is the Air Raid Hour presented by Picasso's Pizza and the Cover One Sports Network. Love this commentary from Carolina Frank right away. A nice, stressless weekend with no Buffalo Bills football. So we are back here today to talk Buffalo Bills football, to give a little bit of an AFC East roundup with the New England Patriots, obviously getting smoked 10-0 early by the Chicago Bears right now. So essentially that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a little run around the AFC East. We're going to talk some Bills, take some questions, and get you guys warmed up for the week ahead here at Cover One. I know they're going deep, disguise coverage, film room, Cover One Buffalo. All those guys later on the week are going to be hitting the Bills Packers preview pretty hard. So we're not going to talk so much about that today. We'll save that for our Sunday pregame show. But for now, I have this little stat I want to share with you to start the show. It was from Football Outsiders today on Twitter. I just love seeing this stat. Josh Allen has scrambled 8 times on 3rd and 4th down this season. He has converted all 8 of those runs for first down. So Josh Allen, 8 for 8, running on 3rd and 4th down for first downs this season. Man, it feels good to have Josh Allen as your quarterback, especially getting to watch some other teams' quarterbacks this weekend, right?
It would make you maybe think like maybe we should just like have him play backyard football on 3rd down and let him scramble, because our short yardage situation has not been great, but that obviously is an impressive statistic. Now, you are totally right about the quarterback situation across the NFL. We are extremely fortunate, and it's our time, right? We went through these hardships for the better part of 20 years with trying to find a quarterback, some decent ones, but never quite finding the guy. And I feel for these teams that are struggling through that right now. Not so much the teams in the AFC East, but the team, some of the teams. Like I kind of feel for the Colts a little bit. I feel for some of these teams that are trying to figure it out. But we went through it. It's now our time. And so for practical purposes, the more teams that have quarterback issues, the better the chances are the Bills of doing what we want them to do this year, and that's winning it all. So sorry about it.
Let's start with a team who's having some quarterback issues, even though their fans and their coaching staff will probably be in denial about their quarterbacking issues, and that's the New York Jets, because they are 5-2 with a 16-9 victory over the Denver Broncos. That game was hard to watch. The New York Jets have some really good pieces. I mean, Joe Douglas is a very good GM. He has put together a very good team outside of, in my opinion, one position. Quinnen Williams has got 29 pressures this season. He's finally coming on. No other defensive tackle in football has more than 25. Sauce Gardner has been absolutely as advertised.
He's awesome.
He's probably already a top 10 corner in the National Football League. He's just nuts. DJ Reed, one of our free agent favorites that we wanted the Buffalo Bills to consider, is solidifying the boundaries there for the New York Jets. That defense is borderline elite. CJ Mosley's back to being the baller that he is, but their offense is quite frankly very average. The running game is solid with Breece Hall and Michael Carter, but Breece Hall tore his ACL today. They traded for James Robinson. Elijah Vera Tucker with a triceps injury. His season is over as well. Just an absolutely brutal day of injury news if you're a New York Jets fan. Wide receiver 3, Elijah Moore, he wants out, a year after being drafted, because the top 5 quarterback they drafted that same year has been that bad. They don't really trust him to throw the football. So what are your thoughts on the resurgent Jets? They look really good in some aspects, but not so good in some other aspects. They're doing what they need to do to win football games, but is it sustainable?
It's not sustainable. I mean, they've had some fortunate luck with the schedule. Now, I know they did beat Green Bay, but at the end of the day, like you beat the Steelers, you beat a Denver team who was already struggling on offense, and then you play against Brett Ripien. So it's like if you're the Jets, like you have to if you're a Jets fan and you look at it objectively, you have to look through that 5-2 record, and you have to sit there and say, like, how legitimate is this team? Joe Douglas goes out and trades for James Robinson. Now, it's not a high draft pick, but he's like trading for a back that he's expecting to contribute to the success of this season that they're having right now. And I get it. I get why you're doing this if you're the Jets. You're 5-2. You're currently the number 3 seed, or the number 3 team, I should say, in the AFC. You're not the 3 seed because you're not winning the division, but you are 5-2, and Robert Saleh trying to get this team to the playoffs. They're gonna try. Now they're gonna probably fall off, but they do have nice pieces, like you mentioned, and you notice the difference between a team like the Jets right now versus a team like the Jags, who are, you would think, in opposite quarterback situations. Trevor Lawrence is a guy they still believe in Jacksonville, that they're trading away pieces at 2-5 to the New York Jets, who are 5-2. It's a very interesting situation right now if you're the Jets, but they're trying to strike while the iron's hot, because the AFC right now, a conference that we thought was going to be really top quarterback loaded and really difficult, some of these teams are struggling. Like you see the Chargers drop to 4-3 after losing to the Seahawks. Denver's in shambles. The Raiders are a team that hasn't really lived up to expectations. The Bengals are a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde. The Ravens aren't quite maybe what they thought. So like the Jets are saying, hey, look, we have a chance to make the playoffs. The Titans are probably the worst 4-2 team I've ever seen. So Joe Douglas at this point, I think, gets a little bit benefit of the doubt, but he missed on the quarterback, it would appear. So it's tough. It's tough right now if you're a Jets fan, but
it makes you feel a little bit better knowing that the New England Patriots have already pulled Mac Jones from the football game against the Chicago Bears. I have confirmed this.
Threw a touchdown.
Did he really throw a touchdown?
Yeah. Jacoby Myers.
My goodness.
Touchdown. 30-yard touchdown.
Oh, well, it appears the Indianapolis Colts 2023 starting quarterback will be Mac Jones. Am I right? But I look at this Jets team, and I want to say that like they're the 2019 Bills, but I can't because of the quarterback position. But I do feel that way, and that they have a lot of good offensive weapons like the 2019 Bills did. They were like on the cusp. They probably do have better weapons than the 2019 Bills, because it wasn't until 2020 when we had Stephon Diggs in actuality. But that defense, like they're that team that's like right on the cusp. But again, I don't believe in that quarterback, Zach Wilson. And and in terms of the Buffalo Bills, we play them twice this year. My expectation, despite the fact that they're playing better and higher than expectation, is the Buffalo Bills still have to go 2-0 against the New York Jets. As good as that defense is, and as good of a chance as that defense gives them to win any single game they're in, I can't picture a world where the New York Jets outscore us. So my threat level for the Jets is still like a 4 out of 10 head-to-head. What's your threat level head-to-head?
It's low. I mean, it's a low threat. And I will say this. It's mainly because of two reasons. One, the quarterback situation with the Jets, and I can't imagine that Jets team, if they're down at all, showing any kind of ability to come back. And two, we love him. We love the guy, but Breece Hall down for the year is a big blow to that Jets team. And he had been really living up to the pre-draft hype, and he came out, and for some folks who thought maybe he went to a bad situation, he certainly did not, and he was playing extremely well. So
he was on the cusp of being their
blow.
Jonathan Taylor. Like we saw how Jonathan Taylor had carried that Colts team previously. Like I feel like Breece Hall was on the cusp of carrying that Jets team the way that Jonathan Taylor had carried that Colts team in years previous. So huge blow to them. You are right. Miami Dolphins here, 4-3. They won 16-10 win over the Steelers in what was a god-awful Sunday night football game. Started out great, but then not a single team scored in the second half, and it had nothing to do with how good the defenses were. I can tell you that from watching the game. But Tua returned after a good first drive. He sort of sputtered out, led 2 field goal drives, and then nobody scored the rest of the way. 4 dropped interceptions was a notable takeaway from that football game. Steelers defense, they couldn't stop us, but they had no problem stopping the Miami Dolphins after the third drive. That Dolphins defense is injury plagued this season. They've been very up and down. There's absolutely no questioning that they gave Josh Allen all he could handle in week 3. Maybe they can do it again, but what are your thoughts on the roller coaster that is the Miami Dolphins through the first 7 weeks of the season?
I think it was either Hansel or Knapp or somebody on Twitter was saying how like the Dolphins are like that team. I think it might have been Ryan, actually. Ryan Sullivan was talking about like, where do you like put the Dolphins in sort of combination of like good play calling, bad play calling, good offense, bad offense. And really it's like hard to judge them because they're just inconsistent, right? I mean, Tua really had that one blow up game against the Ravens, which kind of helped pad some of his stats. And they've just been inconsistent, right? When he gets Tyreek and Waddle going, like they're really good. I mean, Tyreek, they said on the broadcast last night, was leading the NFL in receiving yards per game going into that game last night, 117 receiving yards per game. But there are times where Tua just can't facilitate the ball the way he needs to these guys. There were a couple balls he threw last night that were behind guys. And then sometimes I think the Dolphins essentially try to make Tua look good and go away from what really was working. I mean, Raheem Mostert looked really good last night. He was ripping off 7, 10-yard runs at a time, and they, like, for some reason, insist on giving the ball to Chase Edmonds, taking the ball out of Raheem Mostert's hands, and, like, it just kind of made no sense to me. So this is Mike McDaniel learning, I guess, how to be a head coach and learning how to call plays as a head coach, but it's also Tua being inconsistent. I think that's what he is. They're going to have really good games, like we said, against the Ravens. We talked with Kev about this. Like, he's going to have really good games with those weapons he has, but he isn't to the point yet where you can expect that every game from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just pretty crazy. Like they have these, they get up to these hot starts, they score points, and then the defense sort of settles in and figures them out, and it's a ball game again. And that team is going to live and really die with Tua. And the Buffalo Bills have seen Tua. They've seen that offense once. I think they're going to be better against it the second time that they see it. They're healthier. They're going to be healthier the next time. Hopefully they see the Dolphins as well. They're not going to be missing as many players on the defensive side of the ball. And to me, it seems like the Miami Dolphins sort of emptied their chamber, the chamber of their gun week 3 on defense. Like Brett Coleman did a really nice breakdown on what Josh Boyer did to Josh Allen. He literally called it the perfect game. He said it seemed like it was something the Miami Dolphins spent a majority of their offseason preparing for. And it almost seems that way too, because they haven't really been that good in some of the other games they've played. It almost seems like their sole focus was Josh Allen this offseason, at least on the defensive side of the ball. So, I mean, I give them a threat level of a 4 out of 10 because I just think we've seen Tua. We've seen this offense. We've got tape on what Mike McDaniel likes to do with them. And I don't think that defense is capable of doing to the Buffalo Bills again what they did a second time, especially in Buffalo when it's not 120 degrees on the Bills sidelines. What's your threat level for Miami head-to-head versus Buffalo?
I mean, it's slightly higher than the Jets, but pretty low still, right? I mean, 4 out of 10 seems right. Like if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe 5, but it's not over a 5. I mean, it's probably a 4, 3 to 4 realistically. And watching that game last night, I mean, look, as much as good as Tyreek Hill is, like the one thing the Bills have going for him is they've seen a lot of him over the last 2 to 3 years and playing Kansas City all those times. And so the thing about Tyreek is like he's really not he's more of a horizontal speed threat and yards after catch getting upfield than he is like a true downfield vertical threat. Now he can do that, but most of his damage is coming across the field and running away from guys. And the Bills defense really is designed to kind of take that away.
Especially when Tua is the one running the ball or throwing the ball.
Yeah, it's not Mahomes throwing it to him. And so like he has to put it perfectly for Tyreek to catch that in stride. And I'm not saying he's not going to break out big plays, but it's not a big threat level right now. I think that Dolphins defense is just is inconsistent as well. They do have some good guys up front, Jalen Phillips, etc. But not the biggest threat after seeing how they performed the last couple games.
Great comment here from Heather Smith. She says, I like the Josh Allen Gillette commercial. Oh, there was a previous one with the Josh Allen Gillette commercial. Someone had it in the comment section. There was a Josh Allen Gillette commercial. Sorry, I lost it within the comment section, but there was a Josh Allen Gillette commercial playing during the Monday Night Football game for the New England Patriots. If there's ever more of a sign of the changing of the guard, it's Josh Allen doing a commercial for the namesake of their stadium while they play on Monday Night Football and get beaten by the Chicago Bears. So speaking of the New England Patriots, they're 3-3 playing the Chicago Bears tonight. They are down 10-7 last I checked. They've sort of had that QB carousel back and forth. Mac Jones was hurt. Brian Hoyer comes in, gets hurt. Bailey Zappi comes in, reels off 2 wins. Mac Jones gets a start tonight, but gets yanked after 2 series. Looking at that offense, I mean, they can run the ball really, really well. They're doing old school stuff when it comes to running the ball. They're zigging while the rest of the league is zagging, and a lot of teams like to play that nickel. A lot of teams aren't prepared for sort of that old school running that New England likes to do. But as for throwing the ball, they're just really not a threat. And it's not like they have the most creative offensive minds or guys who can really scheme up, crazy things offensively. So once they get the tape figured out, I find it very hard to believe that Matt Patricia and Joe Judge are going to be able to handle once the league gets some film on these guys. Their defense has been really, really good. A lot of rookies have stepped up, guys like Jack Jones. What are your thoughts on what is quite frankly the very mid New England Patriots?
The Patriots are a weird team to me because, starts with the quarterback situation. Don't know what's going on there. They drafted Mac Jones. Obviously, Bailey Zappi's come in and played probably better than Mac Jones, but their collection of offensive skill position players just seems like it's cobbled together to me. Like it's not. It's not a unit you look at and you can kind of say like, oh, I understand like why they brought that guy in and why they brought like it just seems like they threw a ton of stuff at the wall and they're trying to see what sticks, right? They got, your guy Tyquan Thornton's back. They got Jacoby Myers. They had signed they trade for Devontae Parker. They still have Hunter. Like, what are they trying to do? But then you look at the running game, you're like, okay, Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris, like they have a nice running game, and like that's going to be how they probably have to win games. And I think that's probably how they envision they would win most games, with Mac Jones just kind of facilitating to some of these guys who are talented. But Nelson Aguilar is another guy I forgot to mention. And it's just like, what are they as an identity? And you mentioned it, like they don't really have that offensive guy in the building that can kind of facilitate or create that identity for them on offense. So if you're Bill Belichick and you're kind of running that ship, you're probably just in the ear of these guys saying like, we're probably going to run the ball because that's what we're best at. And he's not afraid, if he has to run the ball 40 times a game. We've seen him do that in the past. And I'm not saying they're going to do that, but you mentioned they're zigging while everyone else is zagging. So they're one of the few teams that probably still might do that from time to time. I still think the Patriots are potentially at the same threat level maybe as the Dolphins, only because that defense is good. And if Bailey Zappi gives them a spark, they are on par with the Dolphins as far as like the potential threat, but not a real threat. Honestly, probably a 4 as well for them. The whole division just kind of feels like I'm just waiting for like the Dolphins and the Jets to fall off because it just seems inevitable, and for the Bills to pull away. That's in my head what I'm kind of envisioning.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I look at the New England Patriots. They're literally the same team as 2001. They're just a slightly better and faster defense. They're the same exact team. They've done nothing offensively to get better, unless people will want to claim that Bailey Zappi is an upgrade over Mac Jones, which
towards elite, it looks like.
Yeah. So, but I mean, their game plan when they go to play teams like the Buffalo Bills is going to be their game plan every week. Like they want to beat you 23-20. They want to beat you 24-21. They want to control the clock. They want to limit the offensive possessions of the other team. And they want to hope for some timely turnovers in the second half that'll give them a short field so they can beat you by a touchdown or they can beat you by a field goal. That is legitimately what the New England Patriots want to do. That was Bill Belichick's game plan coming into this year. That might work against the Chicago Bears. That might work against Zach Taylor-led Cincinnati Bengals. I don't envision, minus there being a winter storm of insane magnitudes, them being able to do that again to a Sean McDermott and Josh Allen led Buffalo Bills football team. My threat level personally for the New England Patriots against us head to head would be a 2 out of 10. Where are you putting New England in threat level out of 10?
I'm not gonna put them that low just because I still think they have some elements that the other teams in the division don't. They still have Belichick. They have a really good running game. Bailey Zappi has given them a spark tonight. I mean, they just took the lead. They have some decent skill on the offensive side of the ball, but I just feel like it's hard for me to differentiate the other 3 teams in the AFC East besides the Bills. Like, each team has a little bit going for them. It's all slightly different, right? We talk about Miami with the good offensive skill position players and some good edge players, but what's Tua going to be? And that new coach with Mike McDaniel. The Jets obviously just lost Breece Hall. They have a really good defense, but Zach Wilson is a huge question mark. They're 5-2, and the Patriots are sitting there at 500, probably going to go to 4-3 after tonight. It's looking like they're probably going to end up beating the Bears tonight. But they have really what's the quarterback situation, and they don't have any kind of real threat in the passing game as far as vertical unless Bailey Zappi comes out. So 3 or 4 for me. I'll give them a little higher than you, but I think all 3 teams are under 5.
So let's review that real quick because I think I'm going to change a couple of my threat levels. I think I'm going to give a couple of teams a little bit more credit. Pops Mafia says, where are the Jets in the threat level? I had the Jets at a 4 out of 10. I'm going to keep them there. I'm going to move the Dolphins up to a 4 out of 10 just because of the speed on that offense, because they have shown that they can scheme against Josh Allen. Maybe they can do it again. I shouldn't overlook them too much, even though I think the Bills will be better second time around. I'll move them up to a 4 out of 10, and I'll move New England up to a 3 out of 10. So just recap what your threat levels were out of 10 head to head against the Buffalo Bills.
Head to head Jets, the Jets for me are probably a 3. I think Miami is still the biggest threat. I'll give them a 4 or 5, and I'd say the Patriots are a 4. So I'm a little higher than you, but kind of in the same realm.
Usually when I'm too cocky and too confident, it blows up in my face. So hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully I didn't jinx the Buffalo Bills during this segment. All right, before we hop into some more conversations, things like the NFL trade deadline, some of the Bills who have sort of spurred this 5-1 start, some of the Bills that have disappointed to start the season that we like to see step up. Before we get into all those things, just want to say that we are sponsored by Picasso's Pizza. 4 great locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Buffalo Pizza since 1980. That hand-cut cup and char pepperoni. It's that Buffalo pepperoni, the only place you can find it. You know it. You love it. You can order it online at picassospizza.net. And if you're an out-of-towner like us, you can even get it mailed to you at your home. And I and you can tell the listener from experience, it's just as good as getting it fresh from a restaurant. Again, that is picassospizza.net. Absolutely perfect for a game day or even a tailgate from home type of meal or snack, whatever you want to call it. So let's jump now to a topic that seems to be probably the most I don't think the word's polarizing, but definitely the one that is trending the most on social media for the Buffalo Bills right now, and that is the NFL trade deadline. Every year, it seems like the NFL is becoming more and more like the NBA, where you can literally make a trade for a player mid-season and he can have an impact on your football team. It wasn't always that way. The NFL was always very old school. You can't acclimate a player this quickly. The playbooks are too complicated, et cetera, et cetera. Not anymore. Not the way NFL teams have sort of simplified what they do, and not
Chris
with
McCaffrey
the pressure.
played this week after being traded on like a Friday.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the point I was trying to make. Like the pressure these teams put on themselves to win. Christian McCaffrey was playing like 3 days. He like hopped off the plane, went right into the stadium, and threw on a 49ers jersey and was playing. So we saw a trade today with Breece Hall going out for the season with the torn ACL. I believe the Jets made an amazing trade here. Essentially, it's a 6th round pick for James Robinson that could turn into a 5th, but really in reality, it's a 5th round pick. The sort of what gets them a 5th round pick is he gets 600 yards for the season he's already got like 340. So he's going to get there barring an injury. So James Robinson for a 5th round pick, to me, that's a steal. And I was really surprised that I shouldn't be because it's Trent Baalke, but that the Jaguars sold on a guy like James Robinson so low. That's a running back. We're going to talk about the running back market in a moment, but first things first, like let's set a baseline. Is running back our most important need right now? Or do we have a more glaring need on this football team?
I would probably say running back is not our most important need right now.
Okay.
And I'm not saying, but I'm also not saying that it wouldn't be nice to go out and get someone. I just feel like if I'm looking at this team right now, and I know the Bills want to give Khalil Shakir his shot, but I do have some concerns about what's going to transpire behind Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. Like, is Khalil Shakir going to be the guy that's going to be reliable the rest of the way? Isaiah McKenzie has been inconsistent. So for me, with the Bills' passing offense, I think being more important to their overall success than their running game, and Devin Singletary has looked pretty good in a couple recent games, and we still have James Cook kind of waiting in the wings. I actually think receiver, and probably slot type receiver, or someone who can play slot and outside, is maybe the Bills' biggest need. I do agree. I don't disagree with Caden saying O-line is something that we should look into, but trading for offensive linemen is really difficult. It's just like teams, even when they're tanking, are not. It's hard to pry good offensive linemen away from teams, even if they're bad. So
yeah, who's that guy in the Jaguars last year? Who the Jaguars
Norwell,
did not?
Andrew Norwell.
Andrew Norwell was. I mean, we were convinced for weeks that the guy was going to get dealt at the deadline. He never got dealt.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually don't see running back as the most glaring need. Obviously, we can go through running backs in a moment because I think that's what a lot of people want to talk about. But I'm with you. I think wide receiver is the number one need with a bullet, and that's just because the Buffalo Bills pass the ball more than any team in the National Football League. If Stephon Diggs goes down, knock on wood. If Gabriel Davis goes down again, knock on wood. That's a significant blow to our chances at winning a Super Bowl. So to me, and again, looking out at the market, I don't know what's out there that we could go get. We're not paying for Brandon Cooks. That salary is way too exorbitant. I don't think we're going to give the draft capital for a Chase Claypool. So it's not just because
DJ Moore.
Or DJ Moore. It's not just because it's OBJ. It's not just because it's OBJ. It's because you look at it and you're like, we can probably get him at a discount if no one else wants to pony. Yeah, like he wants the Michael Gallup deal. If no one's willing to give him the Michael Gallup deal and pay him a ton of money and offer him years into the future, if no one's willing to do that, the Buffalo Bills are the best location probably for him, or the most welcoming destination for him. Von Miller is here. Jordan Poyer, who's buddies with him, is here. He's got Josh Allen throwing him the football. You have the team who throws the football more than any other team in the league. We're going to talk about this later on the show. Probably the biggest weakness on this football team, or the biggest disappointment on this football team right now, is our inability to replace Cole Beasley. It is the most welcoming environment for a guy like OBJ. Like, all of the puzzle pieces fit. And I think that's why most people point to OBJ as the guy that most people would want at this point in the sort of trade deadline, free agent sort of a frenzy that we're in here in the midseason of the National Football League. But I will throw another name out there, and this one is kudos to Ryan Talbot of NY Up, New York Upstate, for this one. If the Bills are looking to upgrade the safety position, DeMar Hamlin's playing admirably. They got Jaquan Johnson. Jordan Poyer has been in and out of the lineup, which is a little scary with Micah Hyde being out. Kareem Jackson in Denver looks like a really and Ryan Talbot shared a tweet that sort of pointed it out. Like, Kareem Jackson is a safety that plays all over the place. He can play strong safety,
corner too,
free safety. He's played boundary this year. He's played nickel this year. He lines up all over, and he's a guy who can center field for you. So Kareem Jackson and Odell Beckham are my 1 and 2 right now, I think, in terms of my free agent and my trade deadline wants. But after that, it obviously, I think, goes to running back, because everything after Devin Singletary has been disappointing. And Devin Singletary is not sort of, I think, the running back that we all want in this explosive pass-happy offense. We would rather, I think most people would rather or prefer Devin Singletary be that 1B to a 1A or a pass-catching type of running back. So of the running backs, out there. We're going to talk about who we would go for. One of the guys we're not going for is Christian McCaffrey. And Jessica Tennis comes in with a super chat. I always appreciate you, Jessica. She says, would you have paid what San Francisco paid for Christian McCaffrey? My answer is no. I would not have paid. I would have offered a second round pick, and I think probably a fourth or a fifth round pick, and I would have stopped at 2 picks. Would you have offered what? A second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth? Would you have offered that for Christian McCaffrey?
I would not. I would have maybe considered offering 3 picks, but that third pick would have had to have been like a fifth or later. I do think that what makes Christian McCaffrey unique is that he can line up as a receiver. He can line up in the backfield. He's got some power. He's got speed. Like, you can say what you want about his health and like the fact that he has been healthy this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is when he's healthy, he's one of the best running backs in the NFL. And I don't think there's really much disputing that. Like, objectively, he is one of the best backs in the NFL when he's healthy. And he can do everything. So if the Bills were serious about kind of maybe changing up their style a bit, then I could have seen it. But if the Bills are kind of insistent on kind of keeping the somewhat of the same style that they're running now, and they just maybe want a more talented player back there, then I guess to me the cost wouldn't have made sense to me. So
Mary C comes in and says, Big Baller Bean would never do a trade, never does a trade, and he won't before the deadline. He has made one move at the deadline. That was Kelvin Benjamin. So that one did blow up in his face. So he has done it. So maybe that would make him gun shy for maybe possibly trying to make another deal again. But I think he would, number one, want to be more secure in the player than he was in Kelvin Benjamin. That might have been a desperation move just because of the complete lack of weaponry that we had around some of the guys that we had at the time, and the fact that we were closing in on possibly trying to break a playoff drought. Now you got Josh Allen. Now you have this loaded football team. You could probably be a little bit more picky choosy, try to rip a team off as opposed to getting ripped off like the Bills did in that Kelvin Benjamin deal. But the reason why I wouldn't have paid the price for Christian McCaffrey is I'm looking at some of these other names that could possibly be available. And we just saw what James Robinson went for.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a great question from Pops Mafia too. Is like, are you happy with Cook so far? Hell no, I'm not. But the thing that you have to weigh here is can Cook get hot? Can Cook get comfortable? Can Cook develop before the season is over? Because if he can, all these guys that we're about to name outside of maybe Josh Jacobs are irrelevant. Like, if James Cook can become the guy that we need him to be, then some of these other names are kind of irrelevant except for Josh Jacobs, because I mean, Josh Jacobs, that performance against the Houston Texans this week, and he's been on. He's
earning
year.
that contract in that contract year. I mean, he's a 3-down back. Like, the
100%.
fact is, he's a 3-down back. He's a first-round pick for a reason in an era where there's not a lot of first-round running backs, or there shouldn't be. He is showing that when he's right, because he has had some nagging injuries over the last couple of years. When he is right, he is explosive. He can catch passes. He's fast. He is the total package running back, and it's probably. He's getting more limelight this year, but the last 2 seasons has probably been, down the rung a bit because he's battled through some injuries and some tough, situations in Vegas. But when that dude's right, he is up there as one of the best in the league, honestly. Yeah,
Roy Collins comes in. He says, in his opinion, Cook was overdrafted. I wouldn't disagree there. I think on draft night, we echoed that. Most of us had a 3rd round grade on James Cook. I said he could slip into the 2nd round based on namesake, based on, I think, what I think were lazy Kamara comps by some people. But I think good teams like the Bills saw him as a weapon. They'd be willing to overdraft him. And the Bills traded back, collected capital, and then took him at the very tail end of the 2nd round. So I think all of those things combined makes it to where obviously he's got to put it all out there on the field. But I don't think the way the Bills got him, I don't think it was an overdraft, in my opinion, especially based on how they moved back twice to do it. But back to the Josh Jacobs point, dude's a hoss. And to have that Alabama guy, 1st round pick, 1st round sort of pedigree back there with Josh Allen, a guy who can He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's not the greatest at in the world, kind of more like a Devin Singletary type out of the backfield, but just be an every down, a guy you can hand the ball off to 30 times a game and not regret it. Now, I know you don't want to take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, but you can certainly take some pressure off of Josh Allen. And the way he runs, he can run through the light boxes, right? Like he's the kind of guy who's going to get teams out of that too deep shell. I would give up, I think, a 3rd round pick for Josh Jacobs. I would offer a 3rd round pick for Josh Jacobs, even on an expiring contract, even knowing we couldn't get him maybe to re-sign next year because of the money he's going to get on the open market. I think I might still trade a 3rd round pick for Josh Jacobs because I think he could be one of the missing pieces because of what he brings to the football team and because of his pedigree as a running back. I think he's a neck above all the other running backs on this list that we're going to get to: Antonio Gibson, Kareem Hunt, Cordarrelle Patterson. What would you give up for a guy like Josh Jacobs?
You know, if it meant the Bills were going to win a Super Bowl this year, I'd easily give up a 3rd round pick for him, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're, is he the last piece that gets you over the top and kind of puts you in that situation in the playoffs where you really become unpredictable, right? You can be unpredictable. I would, in my brain says don't give up more than a 4th for him, right? Like James Robinson got a 6th, that could be a 5th. Seeing that, Josh Jacobs would have to get more than James Robinson, would have to garner more draft capital than James Robinson. So I don't hate this idea from Spin, a 4th and a 6th for a guy like Josh Jacobs. I would
a 2nd, a 4th, and a 6th.
Oh, a 2nd? Oh no. I thought he meant our 2nd, 4th round pick. I thought we had 2, but
I think I read that as 2nd round, 4th round.
Yeah, no, I would not do that. I would do a 4th and a 6th, sure.
Yeah.
And I might do 1/3. The thing is, and this is what I'm seeing a lot of, the Trek reviewer says Moss in a 4th. Like, who wants Zach Moss? No one wants him.
I could see him being thrown in, but I don't think. I think you get Zach Moss.
He's not a sweetener to me. Like,
he's not a sweetener. I think he's just like part of the deal. Buffalo's like, hey, we're gonna cut him. Do you want him? And a team might say, oh, former 3rd round pick. We now have a hole at running back. There's not a guy on the practice squad we want. Sure, throw him in. Like, they might at that point, but he's not a sweetener. Maybe he turns a 7th round pick into a 6th round pick, but I do think there's a possibility he could be attached just because the Bills are trying to unload a roster spot to bring on that new running back, and the other team might see some potential there. But you're right. He's definitely not going to be, well, it's a 4th round pick and Zach Moss instead of a 4th round pick and a 5th round pick. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Walter's making some good comments here in the comments section. He's talking about like how picks do nothing for the 2022 Bills. If you focus too heavily on the future, then you kind of like sacrifice maybe some of the present and going for the Super Bowl this year. And there's a balance there, obviously. Like the Rams mortgaged future to win their Super Bowl. The Bills don't even have to do that, right? The Bills are good enough to, like, we could sit here and say the Bills don't have to make a move, right? We're looking for a move because that's what you do. We do it in fantasy football too. When you have a good team, like, you still got a good team, but you always want to try to find that one move that's going to make your team a little better. And that's what we're trying to look for here. But the Bills at the end of the day don't have to make a move.
Yeah.
And that's why I think giving up a ton of draft capital, even though we should be focusing on the present, doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah. Moss's value is like a 2028 7th round draft. So looking at some of the other running backs available, and feel free to add some if you think I'm missing some here. And again, none of these guys are reportedly being shopped. These are guys who are on losing football teams. Some of them don't want to admit that they're losing football teams, and they're backups now, or they don't like their role, or there are reasons to sort of prognosticate they could be on the move. Number 1 is Antonio Gibson. For some reason, they drafted Brian Robinson. I like Brian Robinson Jr., but the disrespect that the Washington Commanders showed at Antonio Gibson year after year, absolutely phenomenal. Antonio Gibson, I would say, is a guy who could realistically be on the block. Whether Brandon Beane wants to negotiate with the Commanders after the whole J.D. McKissick fiasco, who knows? Maybe J.D. McKissick is on the block. Cordarrelle Patterson. The Atlanta Falcons are still 3-4, probably holding out hope that they could maybe, especially with how bad that division is, work their way to a playoff spot. So who knows if they're going to want to give up Cordarrelle Patterson. They could see him as the missing link to maybe get them to 9-8 and to win that really weird NFC South.
That is a weird division this year, man.
And then Kareem Hunt, who asked for a trade in the offseason, wasn't given it. Deshaun Watson does come back late in the season, but they're 2-5 right now. So they probably shouldn't be 2-5, but they are 2-5. And that's just the reality of it for the Cleveland Browns. So Kareem Hunt, Cordarrelle Patterson, Antonio Gibson, anyone there sort of tickle your fancy comment section, let us know. And let us know if there's any players that we're missing here.
I like Gibson and Hunt. I will say this about the Browns, right? I mean, they have some really good players. They have a great offensive line. Amari Cooper's actually been pretty good for them this year. Nick Chubb's been fantastic. They did just lose David Njoku to a high ankle sprain, and he's probably going to be out for, I think the report was 2 to 5 weeks, which is kind of a weird timeline. But that Browns team is spiraling down, right? I mean, Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb are pretty much what you have left. I know Donovan Peoples-Jones has had some nice moments, but like that team's going to be dead in the water by the time Deshaun Watson comes back for 2022. And if I'm not mistaken, Kareem Hunt is not under contract with the Browns in 2023. So if you're the Browns, like, and you're thinking, well, maybe 2022 is a wash and we're just going to hope to have Deshaun back next year. If Kareem Hunt's not coming back into the building and you know he wanted a trade in the offseason, that's a guy that could make sense. Not going to get into really the whole off the field stuff with him, but as a fit with the Bills, I like him as a fit because I feel like he can shoulder early down work in addition to passing down work. He's proven that he could be a 3-down back in the past with the Chiefs. He led the league in rushing as a rookie. He is capable as a pass catcher. He's capable as a runner. He's a thick guy, but he's got moves. And so he would be probably my top choice, followed by Antonio Gibson. And the reason I say that is because I think Antonio Gibson isn't quite the early down. Antonio Gibson to me is like a better pass catching version of Devin Singletary. And that's like not a knock on Singletary, but like it's a little bit redundant. And if you're getting him for his pass catching ability, then what's your plan for James Cook the rest of the year? So to me,
that's true.
I love Antonio Gibson, the player. I do think he's being mishandled there in Washington. This is my opinion. I personally think he's still the best running back on that team. I think he's better than Brian Robinson. I think he's a more complete back than Brian Robinson. And they have J.D. McKissick there. So he's just kind of wasting away there in this weird timeshare, almost like a Khalil Herbert is in Chicago, and though he did score tonight. So for me, it would be Kareem Hunt would be my top choice. And then I wouldn't hate like giving up maybe next to nothing for Antonio Gibson. If it was like a 7th rounder or something like that, I'd be cool with that. And those would kind of be the two guys. Now, the Chicago thing's interesting, right? Because you didn't, I don't think you mentioned Khalil Herbert or David Montgomery.
No, I have not. Yeah.
But that team's going nowhere too. And the Bears are so devoid of talent that would they be willing to part with one of those guys? Herbert is excellent in that zone scheme that Chicago is running. He
Big
could
time
be a
kick
nice
returner too.
Good kick returner. Like, so I like some Khalil Herbert, but he's getting to the point now where Chicago might look at that roster and be like, we'd be more willing to trade David Montgomery than Khalil Herbert.
I would agree. Yeah. I would think that they would probably be more likely to move on from David Montgomery. So that's another interesting name to throw in the ring there. I think you're spot on with guys like Antonio Gibson. You're essentially, I think you're essentially sort of like a give up slide for James Cook's rookie year. A guy like Kareem Hunt or Josh Jacobs, we mentioned previously, like those are bona fide dudes. Like you can literally like really justify bringing them in, making them like a 1A, 1B, or just even a 1 on them their own with Devin Singletary coming off the bench. And then it's really tougher to justify when it's a guy like Antonio Gibson or a guy like, even as good as he is, a Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yeah, Patterson's off my radar, I think. I just think he's a little bit too, I don't know. I don't know that I don't think he's a fit, honestly, for the Bill. Like a lot of people liked him in the offseason, but for me, I don't see it personally. And I think he's aging. I don't really know what exactly he is. I know he's had a good start to the season, but he's on IR now. Maybe I'm undervaluing Cordarrelle Patterson. He's still a good player, but like for me, it's Kareem Hunt would be my number one option. I have an interesting answer to Pops Mafia's question about would you trade for anyone on defense other than a safety. I have a interesting thought on that.
I just real quick with Roy Collins coming in with Austin Corbett. Austin Corbett was on my list, but he's 27 years old. There's a lot of guaranteed money in this contract, meaning Carolina would have to eat a lot of all of the guarantees. So to me, I don't think Austin Corbett's going to end up being this year's. Why am I blanking on the guy from the Jaguars? Austin Norwell. He's going to end up being
Andrew Norwell.
He's going to be this. He's going to be this year's Andrew Norwell, where people are like are going to prognosticate he gets traded. At 27 years old, he's probably still got 3 years left. I think Carolina looks at that team. They're like, we got a ton of draft picks now. They probably look at their team thinking to themselves, like, we have DJ Moore, we have Brian Burns, we have like a really good defense. All we have to do is go out and get a really good head coach, find a way to get a quarterback with a pulse, and we're back, baby. I don't think Carolina's in this like full scale teardown. I think that they see Austin Corbett as part of their team for the next 3 years while he's under contract. Because it really does, like, you're resetting the offensive line and then going out and trying to get a quarterback and then having to add offensive linemen too. Like, that's just not something you want to worry about. So it makes sense. They're a bad team. He's a good football player. He fits. He's got that history with our offensive line coach, Aaron Cromer, but I just don't see it because of the guarantees on his deal. But who's a defensive player that you would be interested in trading for? Were you going to say Brian Burns?
No, I mean, yeah, that would be awesome. But like, I have another defensive end, and of course, no one's going to be surprised by this, but the price tag is going to be too high, and that's Bradley Chubb forever. I mean, how nice would it be to add him to the mix? The Bills obviously don't need him, and he would be, he would be that in that he would probably be in a rotation with Rousseau on the opposite side of Von Miller, or he could come in when Von Miller's not in and be opposite side of Greg Rousseau. But it's just, I daydream about Bradley Chubb being on the Bills. And like Mario Williams, it happened as an NC State guy. Bradley Chubb, I mean, it's a pipe dream, but man, it would be nice to add him. Yeah. Don't need him, but it would be nice.
Never hurts to add pass rushers, especially to this defense. All right.
Here's why I say this, because I think Denver would try to clean house, fire Nathaniel Hackett, and in 2023, maybe try to have enough draft picks back to where they could trade the Saints a draft pick to let them hire Sean Payton.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, try to resurrect Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited. Has looked pretty limited his time in Denver. All right, so Michael McKeon says, do you have Chase Claypool on your list? I think he costs too much money, and also, like, to me, I like Chase Claypool's physical intangibles, but he's the classic version of a looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane type of player.
Oh yeah, complaining all the time to the refs too.
Yeah, I'm not high. I get his potential. I look at all of that, but paying him in the future, I just don't know how much he's going to come up big in some of the clutch moments, some of these big games that we're going to be playing, etc. I have my concerns about a guy like Chase Claypool. All right, on to the next segment here. We want to talk a little bit of, Buffalo Bills on the field and reflect about what we've seen in our 5-1 start. So we're going to do two things here. The first thing we're going to do is me and you are going to go back and forth, and we're going to share who we think are our top 5 most important Bills to our 5-1 start here. And then we're going to talk about our top 5 most disappointing Bills to that were part of our 5-1 start, players that we think might be holding this team back a little bit. I'll go, you go. We'll go to the comment section, see what the comment section has to say, and we'll start with the 5 Bills most responsible for the 5-1 start. Can we all agree that number 1 is going to be Josh Allen?
Let's just make him 0, because he is the top of the list. Like, he is the guy. Like, he shouldn't even count towards a top 5, because it's disrespectful to put him in a rankings list when he's just that. He's just that guy. So he is Mr.
Unlimited. That would be a good nickname for Josh Allen. But all right. So who would be the next player on your list of the 5 Bills most responsible for the 5-1 start?
The next player on my list is Stephon Diggs. I mean, the guy is just a machine. Shows up like, you remember that old Sports Center commercial where it's like they're at the copier and Steve Levy's like, hey, I'm the machine. He's talking to Albert Pujols and he's like, I'm not a machine. I'm just Albert. And I'm just like, that's Stephon Diggs. That dude is a machine. He is exactly what you would hope for when you traded for him, and a million times more. And he is just Mr. Reliable for Josh Allen. The chemistry those two have has been on display all year. The dude has just been phenomenal. So for me, like without Stephon Diggs, like this offense isn't where it is. Obviously, Josh Allen's fantastic, but Stephon Diggs is the man. He's number 2 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. He was actually number 2 on my list as well. I mean, just go back. He talked about how he added, 10 pounds worth of, weight this off season. He definitely looks stronger. He looks way more willing to engage in contact, especially when he sort of like catches those little bubble screens and runs on some of those sort of like practical handoffs that the Buffalo Bills utilize. He's playing with a confidence this season. Josh Allen feels like he can target him at any time. It almost feels like it's impossible to bracket him, to double him. Whenever Josh Allen needs to find him, he finds a way to get open. The Chiefs have historically shut him down, and he went off against the Chiefs last week. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs as my number 2 as well. Some other people coming in with some really good ones. I know Spin says Groot. We don't have Groot on our list. He would definitely probably be top 10. Same with Jordan Phillips. Spin comes in and says Jordan Phillips. I don't think either of us have Jordan Phillips on our list, but he's certainly up there. And I think that some of these other guys that we're going to talk about definitely in partnership.
This is how good the Bills are. We need more 5. And it was hard.
Makes it tough. And that's what makes it tough.
It was hard after the first 3, I'll say. Like coming up with the last 2, because I think number 3, I don't know. Number 3 for me is Vaughn. Obviously, the 6 sacks in 6 games. He is the first defensive player I have on this. He is the top defensive player to me on the Bills. He added missing piece on that defense to kind of close out games. So as Jessica says, Miller is next. And as Spin says, we need more than 5 spots. So Vaughn, for me, worth every penny so far. He would be number 3 on my list in the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, big time players, big time plays, big time games. That is the definition of Von Miller. He came up huge against the Rams, helped us win that game. I personally think he's the reason why we were able to beat the Chiefs and have the fourth quarter that we did. That's why you went out and signed the man, and he showed early on that he was well worth the price that the Buffalo Bills paid. Speaking of well worth the price the Bills paid, the next guy on my list is, I think, underrated. And people talk about Jordan Phillips. People talk about Tim Settle. People want to talk about Groot. People want to talk about Tremaine Edmonds. I think that one of the reasons why these guys are having such a successful season, and the surprise number 4 on my list, and I think he's number 4 on your list too, Daquan Jones. I mean, what? Maybe the most underrated signing of any team this offseason. What he has done for this linebacking core, for this defensive line, for this run stopping unit, for this pass rushing unit. Daquan Jones is just what a steal he has been in terms of just what he's contributing compared to what we're paying him. There were some people who wanted to say, well, I think we've spent a little too much money on Daquan Jones. In reality, he's playing like a $10 million football player out there right now. So number 4 on my list was Daquan Jones. Speak on Daquan a little bit.
Well, obviously during the offseason, when we were doing our free agency previews, we talked about him a lot. Eric did the fill room preview on him, and then obviously we ended up signing him. This is what we were hoping was going to be the ceiling for a guy like Starr for those years. And Starr had his moments, but he never had, like, Daquan Jones has done more, I think, in 6 games, has shown more in 6 games than Starr did in the years he was here. And that may be unfair to Starr, and I'm not trying to disparage what he did, but Daquan Jones is just a different caliber player, and he's helping Edmonds and Milano so much, especially Edmonds. Edmonds didn't make my list, but man, like, if there was an honorable mention, he's right there, kind of there, because of the play of Daquan Jones up front. And the Bills finally, I think, got the D-line mix right. And we said this heading into training camp, and we saw it early in training camp with this defensive line dominating the Bills' offensive line early in training camp, and Daquan Jones at the center of it. Man, maybe one of the most underrated players, not just signing in the offseason, but maybe just one of the most underrated players totally in the entire NFL.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then who's number 5 on your list? I think you might have the same number 5 as I do, or maybe I guess technically this could be number 4 if we're not counting Josh Allen. But who's the next guy that you have up on your list here?
I went back and forth with this a lot. And it's hard for me because I think they're both playing at an extremely high level.
Mhm.
I personally went with Jordan Poyer on my list as the next spot with the interceptions that he's had in big moments and clearly seeing the effect of when he's not, when he's not in the game. Obviously, Micah Hyde hasn't been out the whole season, but when Jordan Poyer's not in the lineup on that back end, it's noticeable. And I know, the team played admirably without him, but he just has a nose for the football. He's in the
Mhm.
right spot always, communication wise. He's going to have to be the guy that puts that secondary on his shoulders the rest of this year. Obviously, Trey's coming back, but the leader back there and the communicator. Tough call for me to go here between
Mhm.
Jordan Poyer and Matt Milano, but I gave the edge to Poyer.
Yeah, I personally, and I love this comment from Walter Scales here. He says Bobby Hart because the confidence he's gave our D line this offseason in training camp paid dividends. But I personally, I this is the one place where I veered from you. So me and you are the same. Allen, Diggs, Miller, Jones. This is where I veered from you. I went with Matt Milano. I think he's having an All-Pro season. I think his ability to spy on Patrick Mahomes was another key component to our success against the Chiefs. I think he'll be huge in future games against teams like the Chiefs. I just think he's taken his game up to a next level. He's taken advantage of what's in front of him. And I just think that what he's doing sideline to sideline in the run game, in the passing game, I just think that he's one of the guys who's just really been an X factor on this defense this year. So Poyer did miss 2 games as well, but he was sorely missed in those 2 games that he
Yeah.
missed. So yeah, Les version, not a player, but he definitely deserves some of the credit. What he's been doing this year has been
And I kind of gave
absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and I kinda gave, like, the two linebackers, Edmonds and
Mhm.
Milano, as my honorable mention right there, kind of right off the list. But the fact is look how many players are being named,
Yeah,
right? It's like this is not a team of, like, 5 good players in Josh Allen.
yeah,
This is a team of, like, 40, 30
yeah,
to 40 really
yeah.
good players,
Like
and
we didn't
so
we didn't name Gabriel Davis, we didn't name Deion Dawkins, we didn't name Mitch Morse, we didn't name
name
Groot, we
Tremaine
didn't
Edmonds.
Jordan Phillips. Ed Oliver, even though he's been hurt, we know what Ed Oliver's capable of. I think Ed Oliver would be the exception because he's hurt. We wouldn't name him. Tremaine Edmonds.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, like Dane Jackson, like there could have been some other names that I think we could have thrown in there as well. So just an absolutely stacked football team. So kudos to Lindsey Frazier, kudos to Ken Dorsey, kudos to Brandon Bean. Watch I watch these games on Sunday and I'm like, man, it was this bad for us once. And it's weird watching that now, knowing that that garbage that you see on NFL Red Zone on Sunday, that used to be us. And I'm not trying to sound like a stuck up, uppity fan. I'm more than grateful for what we have and appreciative of what we have. And I know it's probably a short window what we have right now, but this is legitimately the best roster in football. And it's just incredible to watch. And I think the more people watch games around the league with the Bills in prime time so much, I think they'll have a better understanding of just how stacked this Buffalo Bills team is. We don't
It
need to make any moves at the deadline. That's a luxury.
Yep.
We don't have to. We're fine if we don't. We're fine.
Totally fine, and that's what I was saying
Mhm.
earlier, right? And that's why I don't wanna give up a ton of draft capital because we don't have to make a move. Jessica said it
Mhm.
as well. Where else people want to Edmonds on? Yeah, they're fairly quiet.
Quiet,
Even
very
some of the
quiet.
haters on Twitter like, going the other way, and I wanna just, like, be like, "Dude, you freaking hated Edmonds, like, 2 months ago, so,
Yeah.
I got your short one." This could lit but in
Listen,
reality,
we're not
though,
the
in reality, this could be the best Bills roster we see with Josh Allen, and that's not a knock. Like, it could be the best
mhm.
in the Josh
And
Allen era we go in.
the salary cap will go up and up and up. But I think the point like I'm trying to make here too is like I don't think you're ever going to see Tom Brady where a team's going to be dominant for 20 years again. So when I say short, I mean like 5 to 10 years. And then we're probably going to have 30 years of miserable football again, like once Josh Allen is gone. So that's what I sort of mean by that. Like it's one, decade and then another. So maybe the word short was a little Short-sighted on my part there, but how about the most disappointing Buffalo Bills? So this is sort of the glass half empty look at the Buffalo Bills football team.
Mm,
Let's go back and forth and let's try to create a list of 5 guys
mhm.
who maybe aren't carrying their weight for the Buffalo Bills early on in the season. And then towards the end, we'll talk about who needs to step up for the Bills to really make a push for that Super Bowl. So let's start with you. What's one of your most disappointing Buffalo Bills thus far? And in the comment section, feel free to chime in as well.
Um, I mean, Zach Moss is on the list for me, and I
Mhm.
mean, it's not fair necessarily to Zach Moss,
Yeah.
because I personally didn't have a ton of expectations for him anyway going into the season. I thought he was, I didn't think he was that good, so I feel
Mhm.
like it's maybe unfair to say that he's a disappointing because my expectations were low, but he's still disappointing. He's still not great. And people are going to look at his yards per carry and be like, oh, they're not that bad. But he had that one big run against Miami. And then otherwise, he really hasn't done a whole lot. Stuffed
Mhm.
on short yardage multiple times, no vision. Just in my mind, disappointing. And like, I know Kevin Masseri was like, we should have kept Lynn Blackshear over Zach Moss, but it's like,
Hey,
okay.
he had negative fantasy points this week. He had negative fantasy points. So
Oh, okay. Well, Zach Moss has been disappointing. I don't think
yeah.
there's any disputing that.
Jessica wanted a final word in her argument in the comment section with, I believe it might have been Trek Reviewer, but she says the last 2 years, Tremaine Edmonds behind a light defensive line. So yeah, now behind guys like Daquan Jones, who are checked in, as opposed to behind guys like Starlo Tulele, who were checked out. Tremaine Edmonds is balling. I'm going to go same position as you, but different player. I haven't seen this one mentioned in the comment section yet. Actually, I just saw it from Caden here. I'm going to go with James Cook. I expected more from James Cook because I didn't think there was a lot of pressure on James Cook. Like Devin Singletary is your 1A running back. James Cook was a 1B running back in college. He's just a pass catcher. When he's on the field, you target him, make a play type of guy. But he just seems like he's really pressing early on in his career. It started with first career carry for a fumble, and we've seen it since then. He just doesn't look comfortable and confident like he did at the University of Georgia. So I'm going to go with James Cook on my list. And then another one coming in, and I know you had another name to add to this. Michael
Hmm.
McKeon, Justin, they both come in. They say a little dirty. Isaiah McKenzie. I would say just the slot position in general. And you want to echo that statement because you have another player you want to add to this list. Isaiah McKenzie and who else?
Well, look, I mean, I think Isaiah McKen, like, and again, unfair, but Jameson Crowder, like,
Mm,
let's not pretend like there wasn't all this hype around Jamison Crowder in the summer saying like, oh, he's going to fill in for Cole Beasley. He's going to get 80 catches. He's going to, soak up all these targets that are being left behind. And like, I was guilty of it too. I thought he was going to be a really nice fit. And not to say that he wasn't, a nice fit, but like in limited touches early in the season, he looked okay. And he did secure that kind of punt return job, but he got hurt. He's on IR now. So again, maybe not fair because he's on IR now, but overall, the signing has been a disappointment. I don't think it's unfair to say
mm.
that with between the injury and the lack of contribution receiving, and then agreed here with Panathis that McKenzie is also on my list in the slot position in general. Really nice game against Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Inconsistent. That's always been the thing. Ball security with him. Just awareness, I think, on the field has always been something that has been a little bit of a question. And unfair to assume that he was going to fill in the Cole Beasley role because we knew he wasn't really the same type of player. I still think McKenzie's still better suited to be more of a
Mm-hmm.
horizontal threat, a jet sweep type guy, and then every once in a while you can find some space for him receiving. But those two guys kind of combine. I feel like it's been a disappointment from the slot position so far.
Yeah, a lot of people pulling for Isaiah McKenzie in the comments. We are too. Like the guys, finger quotes jokingly, the face of the franchise for a reason, right? Like he is a likable guy, and I've said this before in
With
the past. Like
this,
that that was a shot at me, Mike. I appreciate that. But that 2018 team between the 2017 team and the 2019, like that was a dark time for the Buffalo Bills. Like that offense was Andre Holmes and Jeremy Curley and Kelvin Benjamin and Zay
God,
Jones. And it was just awful. But then there were a couple of players, guys like Robert Foster, guys like Isaiah McKenzie. They just gave this offense a spark and a pulse and a life. And I will always appreciate them for that. And I will appreciate Isaiah McKenzie for his contributions after. I personally believe Isaiah McKenzie is no more than a wide receiver 4. I do not think he is an every down team that throws the football as much as the Buffalo Bills do slot receiver. I think the slot position, we mentioned Odell Beckham earlier, or whether it's Khalil Shakir, I think the Buffalo Bills need somebody to step into and take over that slot role and give us some of that Cole Beasley type of production, or that Josh Allen, Cole Beasley type of safety blanket. That void needs to be filled, because I think that's one of the bigger weaknesses on this offense right now. I think in order to win the Super Bowl, that needs to be fixed. I mean, maybe Isaiah McKenzie does it, like fingers crossed. Maybe, I hope he does, because I love him as a player. I would prefer him as the 4, and I prefer either Shakir step into that role, or I would prefer an Odell Beckham be signed to get into that role. Because personally, we like to talk about running back. I think slot receiver is the biggest thing holding this offense back right now. Personally, but what are some other players that you think are disappointing?
I had Cook on my list. I think, maybe offensive line outside of Deion Dawkins and Mitch Morse hasn't been
Yep, I had all
fantastic.
3. Saffold, Bates, and
Like,
Brown.
just lump them all in together. I think Brown has struggled, and I know he had the injury in camp and kind of battled back and ended up starting. There's been some moments where Bates has been a turnstile, and I don't know if that's more of like a function of just his responsibility was not right or whatever it may be, but like that offensive line run blocking between those guys hasn't been great. I think that it's not a surprise necessarily that this has been a disappointing area for the team, because this was the area where we had the most question marks probably on the offense going into the season anyway. So lump them all in together. Trek Reviews is Tommy Sweeney. I had zero expectations for him, so I guess he can't be a disappointment.
Yeah, I had Saffold, Bates, Brown. Not so much the pass blocking, like, has it been great? Like, no.
Yeah.
Like, Spencer Brown's gotten beat a couple of times off the edge, and it's been really ugly. It's more so just controlling the line of scrimmage in the running game, and it's improved the last couple of weeks. But for certain, Saffold, Bates, and Brown, I thought we would be better with the. I thought the Aaron Cromer effect. I thought we would have been a little bit more successful on the ground than we have been so far this season. I have one more on my list. I don't think people are going to like to hear it, but I'm going to go with Boogie Basham. I think we're at the point now where he's being out-repped by Shaq Lawson. The last 2-3 weeks, Shaq Lawson has had more reps than Boogie Basham in the defensive line rotation. I haven't remembered really hearing Boogie Basham's name at all the last couple of weeks. So he's sort of turned invisible. Someone said AJ Epinesa earlier in the comment section. I like what AJ Epinesa has become. Did I expect more from a second-round pick? Yes. Do I think that like AJ Epinesa is the answer to succeed Von Miller? No, but I like what we're getting from AJ Epinesa right now, both as a run defender and providing some pass rush pop. It's Boogie Basham.
He's solid.
It's Boogie Basham's the one who really isn't living up right now, in my opinion, especially when he's getting out repped by Shaq Lawson. What are your thoughts on Boogie?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think I think with the retooled defensive line and the fact that we brought in Von Miller and we had Rousseau there, I think that the expectations maybe were a little bit lower for Basham than even maybe what they were last year as a rookie, which is kind of odd to say, but you also signed Shaq Lawson and you knew what kind of fit he'd be as a run edge defender, and you had AJ Epinesa. It was kind of like AJ Epinesa, Boogie Basham. Which one of those two was going to be a little bit more solid to kind of be that fourth guy? Because originally probably thought maybe be Shaq Lawson, but he's played his way into being the third, fourth guy, and Epinesa being the other. So Epinesa has kind of stepped up a little more than Basham. He's been a little bit of a disappointment, but again, if you look at it from a glass half full and say, well, he's your fifth edge player, that's not the worst. That's not the worst position to be in, is a second round guy with some talent as your fifth guy on the edge. So, but yeah, I mean, with the rotation the Bills have and him, you would think in theory getting a decent amount of snaps that he would have maybe done a little bit more so far.
looking at this football team right now, what's missing, not necessarily what we need to add from outside the organization, but what players need to step up their game most after the bye week for the
Mhm.
Buffalo Bills to really push and make the playoffs? For me, I don't have any. I'm completely content with what our defense has provided us so far this season. All three of mine here are on offense, and I put James Cook. I think we need that gadget guy out of the backfield to sort of just add an element to our offense. I put Khalil Shakir because I think he needs to work his way into the slot. And I think he needs to become that alpha slot ahead of a guy like Isaiah McKenzie for the Bills to take the next step. And I also put the offensive line in the running game. Those are the three things that I had as disappointments early on, or not disappointments early on, but players and maybe units that need to step up for the Buffalo Bills to really make that push in the second half of the season. Where are you going here in terms of who
Yep.
needs to step up their game after the bye week?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the slot position definitely needs to step up, whether it's Shakir or someone else, right? It's gonna be Shakir, it looks like in the short term, so that's what it is. Um, People are probably gonna hate me for this, but and I know he's battled through some things, obviously off the field and battled through injuries on the field, but I think Dawson Knox needs to step his game up here in the second half of the season. And I think with the bye week to get that ankle really fully healthy, get some of this other stuff behind him. Obviously, never forget. That's not what I'm trying to say here, but Knox to step up in the second half of the year would really be a big boost, I think, to
Mhm.
this offense. It may even take some of the pressure off of a guy like Shakir as well in the slot. And we know how good Knox was last year, and we know he got paid. So he's getting paid to be a top tight end now, and I think it's the second half of the year is big for him to step up and like really round out this Bills offense and not being that sort of wide receiver heavy
Mhm.
offense we saw before the emergence of Dawson Knox, and really be that nice balanced attack between getting Dawson Knox involved, getting the slot guys involved, getting the outside guys involved. So I'd like to see Dawson Knox step up. And McKenzie's a good one, but I also
Mhm.
don't really like, I'm kind of like meh on him right now.
Yeah.
So for me, it's Knox. He's getting paid.
Mike Hartle comes in with a great comment too. He says we need to play AJ and Boogie more, save on for the playoffs. I think you'll see that. Like I think they even made that comment too during the Chiefs game. It was Tony Romo or something was like, yeah, I was talking to Vaughn and Vaughn told me he was going to play the hell out of this game. Like he was going to get a huge rep count. And then essentially the Bills made it clear to him that rep count would come down against other opponents. So against Pittsburgh, you see him once we get up, leave the field, not come back.
That's fine.
Against teams
That's
like
fine.
Kansas City, you see him ramp up, and that's 100% fine. So I agree with you there, Mike H, on that final commentary. So we're right about the hour 15 mark here, Dave. So a good place to finish it off. There's some other things we could talk about, but we'll save some of it for the pregame on Sunday. Obviously, Cover One has you covered all week, whether it's the Going Deep podcast and the film room tomorrow, starting to get you ready for the Packers, whether it's Cover One Buffalo Disguise coverage. They always bring you some great pregame coverage as well on Wednesday. You'll have some great fantasy football content on Thursday from Cover One as well. And then we'll be back for the pregame show. Dave, any final thoughts before we head out of here this evening to go hopefully watch the Chicago Bears put the nail in the New England Patriots coffin here on Monday Night Football?
Aaron and I were talking about this on Spaces on Friday. Usually don't like the really early week, but I think in this situation, I think it did come at a good time for the Bills. We knew the first part of the schedule was a gauntlet. It came at a good time. Ride that high after being Kansas City, go into the bye week and rest up for this next stretch. Don't overlook the Packers. I know they haven't been playing well, but still Aaron Rodgers. And
Mm.
when he gets pissed for some reason, he plays like freaking man on fire. So let's not overlook the Packers. We'll talk about it Sunday, but yeah, let's go watch the Bears beat the Patriots.
Jessica Tennis with a great comment to close it out here. We talked about underperformers. We talked about like the top 5 most important players. We didn't talk about overperformers here. So if we would have been
Good
doing this
options right
show,
there.
if we've been doing the show in May after OTAs, the word Christian Benford and Quentin Morris would never have come out of our mouths, much less any other content creator out there. So kudos to those two for showing up in training camp, balling out in training camp, earning a roster spot, and then when their number was called upon, stepping up on the football field. So kudos to those guys. as well. We got a couple people coming in here saying Antonio Gibson, James Robinson. We touched on all of that at the beginning of the show. We talked about guys, the Buffalo Bills should target at the trade deadline. And we talked about, and we did a little tour around the AFC East as well. So hit that rewind button when we're off the air, and you can catch that. And as always, before we head out of here, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for a way to support Cover One, the number one way is to subscribe to a Cover One Pass. Can't encourage you enough. $57 a year gets you a Cover One shirt, a decal. With your subscription, you get a ton of things with being a Cover One insider, exclusive members only content. I know that Anthony and Eric did a really awesome sort of Q&A based film room this past Sunday in lieu of our pregame show. Since there was no Bills game, they're going to do more of those where it's just sort of like a private YouTube channel with people in the comments section and themselves answering any questions you have, walking through film with them. You obviously get that in-depth analysis, the insider only articles, access to our Slack channel, our giveaways, all that good stuff. So become a Cover One Pass subscriber, $57 a year. It is the number one way to support us and our work here. And then the other number one way, because there's two number one ways, is to share. If you really like and appreciate this show and any of the other shows on the Cover One platform, hit that little share button, copy the link, text it to a friend, a family member, somebody else you think would get some enjoyment out of joining us here in the live chat or watching us on replay. Smash that like before you head out. If you're watching on demand, thank you for making it this far, and make sure you leave a comment in the comment section. Come back here tomorrow if you watched live. We always like to have comments in the comment section. Helps us with the algorithm, and we'll be back and forth chatting with people in the comment section tomorrow as well. And if you ever want to listen, we're available on all major podcasting platforms by searching Air Raid Buffalo. You'll catch us pregame. I don't think we've dictated when we're going to do the pregame yet. Do we want to do maybe like maybe before the noon kickoff or before the 1 p.m. kickoff, and then maybe do a Twitter Spaces for the inactive list? Should we maybe try to switch things up a little bit this week?
I'm cool to do an early pregame and maybe just hop on Spaces. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah,
to me.
maybe talk
like
the inactives list a little bit.
Yeah.
That way
yeah,
it
we
gives
can do
people the full day to make the decision on when they want to peruse the pregame. They can do it before
Yeah.
the 1 p.m. games and turn on the red zone, or they can do it right before kickoff.
I'm good with that.
We'll let you know on social media, but that'll probably be the plan for us this Sunday. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, as always, you guys make the show. Always appreciate you. And until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Are we having fun yet?